Do you always anticipate that bad things are going to happen to you because of things that have happened in the past? If that's something that you tend to struggle with, then please, this is the video for you, because after this video, you are going to have approaches, strategies that are going to enable you to make positive steps in the right direction, regardless of what it is that is going to happen. So if that sounds like something that you are interested in building, please continue to listen to this. So this topic is, again, another very personal topic for me, because when I was growing up, there were a series of negative events that happened. At some point, my parents split up. At some later on in my life, I happened to lose my mom. Then there was a period where our family really went down financially. Like, every time I would go to school, I'd come back home and find that we are in a worse house, or we are living in worse conditions. And as a child growing up, that had a very big impact on me, because I thought that good things generally do not happen to people like me. Like, that was what I had in mind at that time. So getting to this place where, like, I have started a business of my own, considering that my family went down financially because of business, I have become a person who is able to speak in front of people, whereas for the longest time in my life, I was not a public speaker or somebody who could do a live video. Not even a video, even standing in front of people was a big issue for me. So yeah, but there's something that changed at some point when I realized that my expectation of bad things happening was letting me down, or rather it was pulling me back. So when I was in university, I decided to think or wonder, like, how would life be if I approached it differently, or if I had a positive anticipation of what the future could be. So that's what led to me. Okay, when I was in high school and previous years, I was a bit overweight. So that's what led me to starting to exercise. Then after a couple of months, I noticed that I could join a team, I could participate in sports, and I even ended up being picked as a first starting player, whereas there's no point in my life where that had ever happened to me. Then that is what led to many things after that, being me trying different things and noticing that if I put effort in a certain direction, then things which I thought initially were not for people like me could end up being things that were for guys like me. So what I'm talking about here is that there are universal laws that were set in place by God. Like, when you plant something, it grows, and then there is a harvest after a certain period of time. There are these universal principles that apply to everything. Whatever you sow, that is what you reap. Of course, that's what it talks about that in the book of Galatians. Then things such as, if you live a good life, there's normally an expectation that you're going to go to heaven. Now, I'm talking generally in terms of every religion. They normally have that, like, if you live a righteous life, then you're going to end up at a better place. If you do not live a righteous life, then you're not going to end up very well. If you're going to be reincarnated, it will be into something like a mosquito and you'll just be smashed or something like that. So there are universal laws that apply to everything. And normally, when you think that bad things particularly happen to you, you assume that there are rules that apply specifically to different people, and then they apply differently to you. It's like there are rules that apply to general society, and then there are you rules, where the you rules are judgment and a lot of negative stuff. But that is not always the case when you look at it. You notice that in as much as you think that you are a special person, everybody is special. Imagine, everybody is special. When you think that you have a unique personality, everybody has a personality that is different. Everybody has a different experience or series of events of life, and everyone has gone through suffering to varying degrees. And some people have gone through suffering that is worse than yours. Others, it's a little less worse, but totally different dynamics. So there are people, in as much as you think that you do not relate to people, there are guys who you cannot relate to. And that is just how society is. So all of us are different, and all of us are special. All of us have different personalities, but we exist under a common law that provides that whatever has happened to us does not determine who we end up becoming. That is one of the things that apply to this common law, that it's not about what you have been given or how circumstances have been set up. Of course, there are people who are underdogs and there are people who receive things much more easily than others. But if you follow a certain path, if you follow a certain direction, if you comply with the way nature works, eventually you're going to find yourself living a totally different life from what you had before. So the thought that you are different, please, that's something that is important to get out of your mind. You may have had your own unique set of circumstances, but if you look keenly, you'll notice people who've had even worse circumstances having better outcomes. So tapping out and saying that, oh no, it is because of my certain circumstances that negative things are going to follow. That is just a way that you are using to pretty much keep yourself into what is familiar, that is not necessarily serving you. And when I looked into this topic more, I realized that trauma and past disappointments lead to bad habits, usually lead to bad habits if you are not very conscious of who you are innately, who you are created to be, and how wonderful you are as an individual. And the fact that your past and your future are not even in your own hands, they are in the hands of God. So there are certain habits that we tend to pick up when we go through difficult periods. If you've noticed people picking up habits such as drinking alcohol, taking too much alcohol, or just being out of character, spending time with the wrong company, those are things that people pick up to cope with trauma, to cope with negative circumstances that have happened in their lives. And unfortunately, when the bad habit is picked up, you end up justifying it and seeing it as though it is a part of who you are as an individual moving forward. So whereas this habit that you picked up was supposed to protect you from the pain that you're experiencing, it ends up causing more pain and limiting you and keeping you always stuck in a certain prison where you cannot be able to break out. Whereas the reason why you went through everything that you went through is for you to become an overcomer, to become an example, and to show that you can live a life that is totally different from what you have experienced before. That's what we call redemption. And when people see that, it becomes a source of inspiration, a source of hope, and a source of courage. But when you allow the past experiences to become a limiting factor, it leads to a sense that we call victimization. Like, you perceive yourself to be the victim. You see other people as though they are the ones who have the power to get you out of your specific situation. And therefore, if they do not act in a certain way, that means you're always going to be stuck. You're always going to say, no, people like me are not being given certain opportunities. People like me are somehow disadvantaged. People like me are looked down upon. But when you really look at it, people don't spend time thinking about you. They're just looking for their own stuff and trying to fix their own issues. It is just you who is continually victimizing yourself and becoming like a burden most of the time to your family members, to people who are around you, a negative influence around them. Whereas you have a lot of capacity, you have a lot of capability, you have the ability to make a decision, you have the ability to say that, hey, from today, life is going to be different, and I'm going to start making different decisions that lead to the outcomes that necessarily are not aligned with the way my life is at the moment, but are going to give me what it is that I'm looking for out of my own life. So the thing that we have been talking about is, like, there is nothing that is special about you. You are different, just like the way everybody else is different, and we all live under common laws, and you do not necessarily have to end up the way we started. Like, our past does not necessarily have to determine our future. Our decisions are the ones which determine our future and how much we walk in alignment with how we were created. Then the second thing that is very important to pick up. Now, I also mentioned that there are bad habits that difficult circumstances make us build. And then when we justify these bad habits, it becomes difficult to get out of the bad habits. And therefore, you constantly justify what it is that is not right or correct. The third thing that I'm going to talk about now in terms of proper habits, or something that you can start to practice to get yourself out of that constant expectation of bad things happening to you, is retelling your story with a perspective of gratitude. Now, retelling your story is looking back at all the events that have happened in your life and starting to tell that story from the perspective of, I'm grateful that because of this. So if you went through a difficult period, perhaps it showed you that you are strong enough to deal with certain circumstances. So at the present, you're strong enough to pick up the habits that you need to build a bright future. So if you went through that fire, you're not going to be afraid of a little fire that you're facing at this point in time. If you went through something like failure and you did really badly academically in your past, then living through that period where you are scorned, you are ashamed, it showed that you have that ability to withstand. You have that ability to withstand all that, and therefore you can be able to now withstand building up proper habits that show that where you came from is not where you're supposed or where you're going to end up. So retelling your story is actually something that I did, with all the negativity and all the bad things that happened in my life. And that's part of what enabled me to see that I want this story and all the characters in my story not to end up killing me as the center, or what is it called? I'm not the star, but as the main character in my story, but they are going to propel me to living a better life in one way or another. So retelling a story from the perspective of gratitude and embracing an attitude of gratitude every day. That's something that is really going to help you not to look at the future as anticipation of negative things happening, but you're going to continually appreciate the things that you see each and every day that are taking you towards what the future holds. Then the other thing that is important to look at is that, how do I put this? The anticipation, what you anticipate in your future is going to determine how you're going to act today. Okay? So now that you anticipate that bad things are going to happen, you're doing bad things today that are going to lead to bad things. But if you anticipate that good things are going to happen in the future, then you're going to do good things today that are going to lead to good outcomes. The thing about being now I learned there's a complex word for it called a catastrophizer, where you're constantly thinking about catastrophe, is that it has made you an excellent visualizer. You know how to visualize things, like you know how to visualize exactly how things are going to turn out to a level that it impacts how you're going to act today. So that same ability is what you're going to use to visualize how good things are going to be for you to start making certain decisions today. And now when you look at things from the perspective of gratitude, even if things don't happen exactly according to plan, you're going to start seeing that maybe they haven't happened according to plan because there is a better plan, or God has a much better plan for me moving forward. So last week I had an issue with my camera. So this week I'm having an issue with construction noise in the background. So if it was some time back, it would have been an issue for me, saying that I'm not going to record because there's some noise. But I know I have a message, and if this message is for somebody, then please, I know you persevered through this construction noise, but just listen to this slowly. So to summarize what I have been saying is that all of us are different, are special, have different circumstances, are living in a different time. And therefore, there is nothing that is particularly special about you that makes everybody else the same. There is no you and everybody else. It is you just like the way everybody else is like you, somehow having their own different issues. Then the second thing that I spoke about was that sometimes bad experiences lead to bad habits that are justified, leading to bad outcomes. So if you are able to work on good habits when you're going through a bad time, that is going to make you stronger, leading to better times. Okay, that's the second thing. The third thing that I spoke about was retelling your story from the perspective of gratitude. Looking at it and seeing that actually God was with you one way or another, regardless of what you experience, and therefore there's an expectation that you can live a future or a life that is going to be wonderful as a result of continually seeing the good things that have happened regardless of what is going on. Then from there, we talked about the fact that the expectation of bad things has made you a very good visualizer of how things are going to be, leading to you acting a certain way today that is going to lead to that outcome. So that same ability, if it is used to visualize good things happening, like how would it be if things turn out well? Okay, this is something you can learn about even when you listen to a guy called Myron Golden. He's a very big YouTube star, talks a lot about the Bible. So when you think about the positive things that are going to happen, it's going to lead to positive actions today that will lead to that positive future. How does this tie to personal branding? If you're trying to build a brand around yourself and you constantly expect that bad things are going to happen in the future, you're never going to show up fully as yourself. You're never really going to show up. Your true self, your abilities, your talents are not going to come out because you expect that you're going to be rejected. You expect that the deal is not going to come. So you're not going to come through. You're not going to shine through the opportunities that you have at the present day. You're not going to be able to show up with all your energy, even if you have no audience and you have only one person listening to you. But if you have an anticipation that this message, even if it is for one person, I must tell it, then you're going to show up in a totally different way. If you have a brand that, if you're building a personal brand, but you know that you have built some certain bad habits because of your past trauma, it is going to affect how you relate with people. If you have been betrayed before and you find yourself getting certain opportunities or in negotiation situations, you're going to look at the people across the table as though they are there to victimize you and to treat you badly. But this is just a business negotiation. People are just trying to get the most positive outcome. There's nobody who wants to treat you badly or anything. It's just a business negotiation. But you're not able to see that because you have a very big emotional storm or emotional tsunami that comes, and you show up a certain way that does not align with the way that you've presented yourself in terms of your personal brand. You miss opportunities, your name becomes tainted, and then you end up exactly where you are, regardless of the efforts that you've been working on when it comes to your aspects of personal branding. So these things that we talk about have an impact on who you eventually become, because the person who builds, the leader, is always a person who determines how far something goes. Your personal brand, your business, your career, everything. So if you do not work on yourself, then not work on yourself, not work on your past, don't work on your expectations. You think that bad things are constantly going to happen. You won't have what it takes to take your whole idea through and to make it shine and become all that it was meant to be. So this is Dennis Mboro. So that has been today's talk. I'm still promoting the book on making your first career choice, what nobody tells you when you're making your university choice. Again, this is a subject that ties to that, where some people, you may have experienced a very tough childhood, maybe financially, or you are looked down upon, then you happen to get a certain grade that determines the career you want to choose. Then the career is not necessarily for you. You end up struggling, and nobody cares that you have become who you thought that you wanted to prove yourself to them as, and ultimately become frustrated. So if you make a choice, career choice, that is more aligned with who you are meant to be, without necessarily looking at all that baggage, it's really going to help you to live a more authentic life moving forward and free of all those turmoils that you're facing at that point in time. So again, for guys who are making decisions at this point, it is important for them to have this information so that they don't end up making the wrong choice. I'm going to put the links to the books on the description of all the lives that I have recorded. So do go there, get a book. Last week, for those guys who bought last week, I was adding personal notes. So for this week, looks like I may consider, if you are among the first 5 people to buy the book this week, you just send me, if it's yours, I'll send you a personal note at the first page of the book. If it's for somebody, I'm going to put their name. So it's just for the first 5 people this week. I think I'll just extend it again for 1 week. But the most important thing is not the note, it's the information that is in the book. So yeah, promote it for guys who are making decisions right now, and let's ensure that people make better decisions so that they can have better futures, because ultimately that is what is going to help all of us. Let's not have people who are frustrated, who serve us in a bad way. Yeah, I won't proceed from there. That's where I'm going to finish today's Monday morning live, and I'm looking forward to talking about another important topic this coming week. Have a wonderful week.